Hello and welcome to the 11. I'm William Pitts. Thanks for watching on the 12 News streaming app. If you've never watched us before, this is a show where we don't just tell you the news or report the news to you. We help you understand the news. We explain what's going on, and we go really in depth into a lot of different subjects. So first, let's start out, as we always do on the show, with our desk check. And we will bring in Dan Siegel right now at the desk. Dan, a busy morning on mostly the freeways. What are we looking at for the rest of the day?
Well, the big story right now is actually a fatal rollover on Cave Creek Road in North Phoenix, a Sunny Slope area. A 17-year-old is dead. Info from Phoenix PD preliminarily is it might have been a street racing situation. There was a second vehicle that stayed nearby. We're trying to find out more about the circumstances of this crash that shut down an important road in the Sunny Slope area, starting about 10 o'clock last night through about 6 this morning.
Yeah, that video, as we're watching right now, I mean, that's pretty horrific video. That car is upside down. I mean, that no wonder that was closed for a while. What time did that reopen, or is it open?
It did reopen this morning. They finally got a tow truck out there and lifted the truck off of the business property there and took it away. They say PD says no signs of impairment in the crash on the part of the second driver. They're still trying to figure out what exactly led up to this.
Gotcha. We'll, of course, be following that. I'm sure we'll have more 1, 4, and 5. Okay, what else do we have? Because this is, again, we're sticking with the freeways.
It's all road mayhem. 101 was shut down southbound this morning via DaVentura for a crash. It was a pickup truck, hit the wall, you see it there, and then caught fire. But they had southbound 101 shut down in that mid-Scottsdale area from about 5 this morning until a little after 7. So serious injuries on the part of the driver. Just a bad time for a wreck like that to occur right at the morning rush.
Yeah, right through the middle of rush hour. I know I was watching Troy Lynch talk about this for just hours and hours. And I mean, the car doesn't honestly look that bad, but it caught fire, and that's obviously a problem. But to shut this down for hours and hours, I mean, they have to be looking for something.
Well, there was concern the injuries potentially might be more serious than just a basic crash. Plus, there was debris from the pickup truck that was scattered, so it took some time to clean that up.
Yeah, the 101 southbound, obviously really, really busy. This is video from 4:50 in the morning. This is just what I grabbed. But, it stayed that way well into the daylight hours. All right, the third one, at least we're having some fun with the third story that you're checking today.
Absolutely. Big day out in Chandler for Seafood City. It's a Filipino grocery market. Had a ceremony at 8 o'clock this morning. Reporter Kyle Simchuk was out there. We did a little special streaming show at 9 o'clock, taking you inside, and quite the experience with foods that you might not otherwise see, and obviously places to eat those foods and some specialty items. So this is taking the place of the old Sears at the Chandler Mall. So busy out there today, and we'll see how the business does going forward.
That is going to be just a really, really busy area. You got Scheels. I mean, Scheels is its own thing. But then look at the size of this grocery store. This is just nuts. So Kyle was out there earlier, and I saw some of the video. I mean, people around the block over there, around the store. That's crazy for a grocery store.
It was quite a scene. Yeah, it was fully down the sidewalk and around the corner, and everybody was super excited to go in. It felt kind of like a Black Friday feel. But yeah, some unique things out there.
Man, between this and Buc-ee's, I mean, just two massive openings left and right.
We are a destination. We are a destination west and east here, apparently.
Buc-ee's in the west, Seafood City in the east. All right, Dan Siegel on the assignment desk. Thanks a lot. We'll have much more on that coming up. 12 News 1, 4, 5, and 6, probably with Seafood City all over the place. All right, thanks a lot, Dan. So right now we're going to go into our big story. And our big story comes to us from our reporting partners over at The Beam. And I've got Katie Wilcox here with us. Longtime viewers of 12 News might remember you from 12 News. Thank you for coming back, obviously. And we're going to start off by playing the story that you've been working on for a while. But this is about the graduation gap in Arizona schools.
Right. Our investigation found a huge gap between the number of students graduating and the number passing state standardized testing in 11th grade. And our investigation further found that the system that's supposed to hold schools accountable is really masking how big the problem really is and how wide that gap is and who's getting hurt the most.
And we're going to talk about that with you in just a second, right after this story.
In the Tolleson Union High School District, graduation is a massive celebration.
I'm nervous, excited, happy to be out of school.
I feel like I accomplished so much.
At La Jolla Community High School in Tolleson, 88% of students crossed the stage to receive their diplomas in 2025. Even as public records the Beam examine reveal more than 3 in 4 students failed to meet state standards in 11th grade math and reading. The school is just part of a gap we found across the state of Arizona between the number of students graduating and the number meeting state proficiency standards in 11th grade.
That does not paint a bright future for our state.
The gap is even wider for low-income students, who make up more than half of all students in Arizona public schools, and the Beam found are half as likely as their peers to pass state standardized testing. At La Jolla Community High School, 54% of students qualify for free or reduced lunch based on household income. And despite their low test scores last year, the state awarded the school its first A letter grade.
Let's make some noise for our A-rated graduating class of 2026.
Tolleson Union High School District Superintendent Jeremy Kayas says his schools deserve high ratings.
Many of the students who come to us are already below grade level before they get to us.
He says the letter grades are not only based on test scores, but on student growth.
We've made significant improvement on the letter grade system because we've addressed issues like making sure that when students come to us in 9th grade, they are experiencing significant growth before they leave us.
And growth is one of the factors the state uses to determine a school's letter grade. That's because, as State Board of Education experts said, 10 years ago, the state changed how it rates schools to account for poverty.
The system prior to change had a really high correlation between low letter grades and student poverty.
Now the grades factor in how well schools help students grow, even if students don't pass standardized tests. It also includes points for graduation rate and proficiency, but a decade later, criticism of the system is mounting.
And this letter grade means nothing to me.
In June, an Auditor General report slammed the school report card system for potentially inflating schools' letter grades and giving A's or B's to schools with very low student proficiency. And the AZ school report cards provide a real incentive for schools. High letter grades can attract students, while lower letter grades can turn them away. And in Arizona, enrollment determines school funding.
We feel pressure to have high grad rates and high proficiency rates.
Derek Bosch is the Associate Superintendent of Schools in Yuma Union High School District, where 79% of students qualify as low income, and the Beam found the widest graduation gap among large districts in the state. And one high school is an example. At Gila Ridge, 91% of students graduated in 2025, but only 34% passed state standardized testing in 11th grade English language arts, and just 19% passed math. Gila Ridge is also an A-rated school. And Bosch says student test scores don't tell the whole story.
Because I've seen our kids in action and I know some of them may not test well, but I look at other skills that they have and I think they can absolutely be successful, yes.
Still, education researcher Peter Boyle says the graduation gap is a problem.
So if you're one of those Arizona students who is not yet meeting the proficiency benchmarks in reading or language arts, that's a very serious problem for you, and it's not your fault. You're a student.
And it's for Arizona's leaders to solve, not students.
You're in a system that isn't yet meeting your needs.
But leaders are divided. Republican State Superintendent Tom Horn proposed changing the school's letter grade system to tie letter grades closer to proficiency.
But I've suggested that if you have good growth but not good proficiency, you can get a B but not an A.
And do you think that that would disadvantage these high poverty schools?
Well, B's not bad.
But Democrat state lawmaker Nancy Gutierrez warns lower letter grades could lead to lower enrollment. And lower enrollment means less funding.
It's a vicious cycle. We're not funding our public schools fully. And I think the letter grade system is used to try and tell parents that students aren't being educated. Students are being educated in our Arizona public schools.
All right, back here with Katie Wilcox. And Katie, this only applies, though, to public schools, right?
That's right, yeah. Public and charter schools get these letter grades, but private schools don't get the letter grades, and their students don't have to take the test.
Got it. So what I get out of this when I watch this package is an A+ doesn't really mean what I think it does. Because I think an A+ is going to be the most fantastic school that has ever schooled.
Yeah, so that's actually something I talked to a lot with the superintendent out in Tolleson. One of the things that he told me is that we expect, everybody kind of thinks about letter grades in terms of like, well, anything over 90% is an A, and anything 80% would be a B, and so on and so forth. But what our investigation found is that in Arizona, there are no districts no high school districts that had more than 60% of their students scoring more than 60% on math exclusively. So if you really did take these tests and just use proficiency only to letter grade, you wouldn't have A-rated schools, or at least not on the district-wide level.
I mean, this kind of seems like, because I'm looking at some of the numbers from the story again, and you've got 3 out of 4 failing at La Jolla, 11th grade state standards of reading and math,
Right.
but that's still in a school.
Right.
Gila Ridge, 34% are passing 8th grade reading, 19 are passing math, A-rated school.
Yes.
Did we change the standards to make A schools?
Yes. 10 years ago, absolutely, they changed the standards to recognize how much of an impact poverty was having on these standardized tests. So they recognized, and it was maybe a different test 10 years ago, but standardized tests have long time been correlated with high poverty. And this kind of research goes back into like No Child Left Behind times, right? We've got 20 years of data at least that shows this sort of correlation between high poverty and low test scores. So what the state of Arizona did 10 years ago was said, okay, since we know that correlation exists, let's try to see how schools are doing when you have a student who comes in that's behind grade level. You already know they're not going to pass the test. What we want to measure is how much can the school grow that student. And that's why we have this growth measurement. And that's where Gila Ridge and Tolleson is telling us, the Tolleson district and the Yuma district are telling us that's where they're making up some of those points. But graduation rates also some of the points that go into this. And that's why there's this question of, well, if we're incentivizing that you raise the graduation rate, are we incentivizing that over raising the proficiency scores? And that's something that the state's trying to work out right now.
And I think when you look at it, you think, okay, great, an A-plus school, we should have, it should absolutely be from 90 to 100%. That's
Sure.
great.
That's
But then
not
when
a
you
thing
actually
in
start
Arizona.
but then when you start to dig down deep into it, you're like, okay, look, there are a lot of things that go into how a school runs and the output, for lack of a better term, of
Exactly.
a school. The graduation rate and also the educational value of that school. You were mentioning it a second ago, and I want to drill down in it a little bit,
Yeah.
is the poverty involved in this, because schools with a higher poverty rate have inherently lower scores.
They do, and I don't want to say inherently, right? That could make it sound like we think that, poor kids or low-income students can't learn. Of course they can learn. What we're really saying is that when you come from poverty, or what we're seeing, I guess, and what educators are telling me is that if you are a student who didn't have the same sort of outcomes as, the things that are coming in before you even go to school. Maybe you didn't have preschool. Maybe you couldn't afford that kindergarten. Maybe your family didn't put you into tutoring. Maybe you didn't have as many books in your home, right? There's a lot of these other things outside of your life that are associated with poverty that can set you back before you even get into school. And then there's this issue of instability. If you are moving around a lot, maybe your family's been evicted, maybe they get new jobs, you don't have the consistency in your education either, that can set students back. And then jobs. By the time you're 11th grader and you're supposed to be taking this ACT, are you also working? Are you not
providing
doing
for
homework?
your family?
Are you missing school to go to a job? So there's context around what poverty can really mean for students. And a lot of those other issues are why we're seeing for so many years this kind of association with lower proficiency and poverty. What some have said is that you've got to put more resources into schools to try to help that overcome that issue. But at the same time, there's this question of, okay, but at a certain point, you got to just get those grades up, right? So there still has to be this measure of accountability. And in Arizona, one of these things that ends up happening is that we're not just comparing, these letter grades are not just saying public school versus public school. Because we have the ESA program, it's public school versus public school, or parents have the choice to go to a private school. And if you choose to do that, if you take a child out of a public school using an ESA program and go to the private school, the public school can lose the money for that child. That's how the voucher program works. And that is one of the big concerns that, especially the Democrats that we talked to said, is that if you're taking more money, if you end up taking money out of these higher poverty schools, lower income schools, you could see things getting even harder for those.
Yeah, do ESA kids have to take these tests?
They don't, that's right, yeah. ESA kids don't have to take the tests. Democrats did propose legislation that would require students who get ESAs to take the tests. In both the House and Senate last year, they didn't get a hearing, they didn't get a vote.
Yeah, didn't just fail.
It didn't just fail, no, it didn't just fail.
It wasn't
did
even
not
given
get,
the opportunity to fail.
It did not get voted on, right?
Yeah.
That is a non-starter right now as far as like ESA reforms go. Democrats like I said, both the House and Senate proposed legislation for that, and it didn't go anywhere.
So then we get into the effect of schools that have a higher level of poverty, which is kind of this snake eating its own tail kind of thing, because we are looking at then nobody wants to be in that school because it has lower ratings, it has not lower standards, but lower performance, so the enrollment drops. And if the enrollment drops, what happens?
If the enrollment drops, the funding drops, absolutely.
And so you just keep doing this.
In Arizona, yeah, funding follows students. Enrollment determines funding, absolutely. And so the letter grades themselves don't determine the funding, but like you just said, one of the biggest concerns is that if you have these consistently lower letter grades with certain schools, particularly schools that serve really high poverty students, then you could see exactly what you just described, a situation where it becomes that vicious cycle, the way Nancy Gutierrez put it. I think, I think the part that we do not want to forget, though, is that we shouldn't be just thinking about what's the letter grades. We should really be thinking about what is it going to take to raise proficiency. Because while there can be this debate over should a school get an A or should a school get a D or a B, whatever the letter grade may be, I think that what people really want is to find out, can we help our students meet those standards? Because we don't want different standards for low-income kids versus high-income kids. That should not be ultimately, in talking to all the people I've talked to, the goal. We shouldn't say, well, you have a high poverty school so you can have lower standards. I don't think anybody wants that. What they want is to figure out what are the best ways we can serve the most students all the time.
Yeah,
and
as a parent, I mean, you want your kid to be able to come out of school reading, doing math at grade level. That's what you want. You want your kid to come out of there and be successful. It's not always that easy.
No.
So how do we change? Is it a better idea to just get rid of the letter grade and go to a different format? Or, I mean, Tom Horn was on your piece saying that he didn't want to give an A, he wanted to give improvement up to a B, reward the improvement, I guess.
Right. I think that he was recognizing that there is an issue, right? We have this problem, and so what is going to be the most fair way to rate schools? I think some people would say, well, private schools don't get the letter grades at all, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not great. Now we have the system. We have this federal government system saying we're going to hold schools accountable. Most states have some form of school rating like this. Our state's not unique in the A through F letter grade system, although each different state can decide how they want to do their own ratings exactly and what the formulas exactly will be. But the audit report that came out this summer more or less said that Arizona's is fairly typical, frankly, as far as how other states are grading schools. But the question does remain, does changing the letter grade system mean that you're going to get higher student test scores? Maybe a little bit, if it pushes the school to say, okay, we need to re-emphasize test scores. Maybe there will be some impact.
Changing a letter grade isn't going to make anybody read better.
It's probably not. I think the experts that we talked to said, Peter Boyle specifically said that it's not the first thing that comes to his mind when he thinks about how do we raise the standards and how do we help more kids read and do math. His perspective was we have to look at these research-based different methodologies that we know work, like early childhood education, like additional tutoring, like more specialized teaching and smaller classrooms even in some cases.
Now you mentioned the Auditor General's report.
Yes.
What exactly did that say? You said it in the piece, but
yes.
This kind of drilled down on, were they accusing him of potentially inflating the grades?
Yeah, they do. So the grading system is already complicated, right? So there's already,
as we've established,
yeah. This A through F letter grade system for schools already has all these different formulas that you're putting into it, and it goes on from there that each one of those formulas, each category has its own formula in it, right? So that's complicated. And on top of that, this part where they were really criticizing this potentially inflating comes down to the possibility for bonus points. So they were highlighting that as like, okay, so you have all these things that are detailed out, and then there's also bonus points, and they were concerned that there could be a potential for grade inflation when you're rating public schools.
And really, at the end of the day, letter grade or no letter grade, these kids are coming out unprepared. And that's kind of the big part of this. And we are, by the way, everything I read says we are near the bottom of the country in terms of spending. We're not near the bottom.
We're the bottom.
We're almost at the bottom.
At pure pupil spending, the NEA report last year quoted saying Arizona was the bottom. So, yes, I mean, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of educators, especially people who are working in the schools directly. They want to see that investment. And I actually think, and what Peter Boyle, again, that researcher with the Center for the Future of Arizona said, in their surveys of just Arizonans in general, they want to see these positive outcomes. That's not a political issue, right? Republicans, Democrats, no matter who you ask, they want to see improvement and see strong students and a bright future for Arizona. And so they're looking to see what are the things that we need to do to actually help improve these scores.
You would hope it would be a total bipartisan thing to say,
you would hope
do what we need to do. But we know that's never the case.
I mean, it's been tough. And, this year specifically, the state budget that was just passed in June, it didn't significantly add money to the schools. There was adjustments for inflation, but even that had discussion of whether or not it really kept up with inflation. So there was controversy across the board, and it's been a challenge to increase funding for Arizona's public schools. We have been stuck as a state at the bottom of that per pupil funding for years.
And really quickly, explain what the BEAM is, because we're going to see more from you coming up in coming months.
Yeah, absolutely. So the BEAM at Arizona State University, we are a public service newsroom that's designed to do accountability reporting like this. We're mainly focused on education based here at Arizona State University, and I'm a professor of practice, as are my colleagues, my reporting colleagues. So we are all teaching at Arizona State University. We're working with interns and other students to help really grow that future pipeline of journalists. And we're partnering with local newsrooms to kind of do this work and help raise awareness of these issues and really do that in-depth reporting. Sometimes data-driven, like this story was. You saw a lot of data in this one, but
you love your data. I know you do. I know you love your data.
I've always been the data journalist here, but yes, that's right. So we're an accountability newsroom that's working with Arizona local media.
Well, we're glad you are working with this one, so we appreciate it. All right, Katie Wilcox from the BEAM, thanks a lot. You're going to stick around because I want to get your take on our one good thing today.
Okay.
And from now, though, we are going to move on to the follow-up. All right, our follow-up today is something that really didn't get a whole lot of attention yesterday. We'll see if we can get that camera. There we go. That camera just glitched a little bit. One thing that didn't get a whole lot of attention yesterday was a Pew Research survey that came out that says, for the first time, the majority of parents favor banning cell phone uses in school, start to finish, the whole thing. That really has never tipped that far in that direction before. We are talking 68% in 2024 favored just an in-class ban. That's moved to 74% in 2025, now 77% in 2026. There are two different kinds of bans that people are talking about, especially this Pew Research study. We're talking about in-class, where when you're just in class, no cell phones. I would think every teacher would be in support of that. And then there's all-day bans, which are basically a cell phone ban from the first bell to the last bell, the entire day, all the way. Now 48% favor an all-day ban, bell to bell as they're calling it. Only 43% of parents oppose that, which is, for the first time, that has tipped into that direction. And there's a lot of states that are adding bans on cell phones in all of these states, things that, just to get these phones out of kids' hands and try to get them to pay more attention. We're doing a lot of education here, I just realized, on this show. But there is a generational divide. Younger parents that are, around the age of 18 to 29, younger kids obviously don't favor this as much. They are only in favor to 57%, but still a vast majority favor cell phone bans. And I think a lot of the parents that I've talked to are like, yes, absolutely. I will tell you right now that my kid doesn't even have one, hasn't asked for one, doesn't want one. And there's this little cabal of parents at our school, which I am so thankful for, that are basically like, yeah, no. We're going to hold off on the phone as long as humanly possible until we just can't argue with our kids anymore. So finally reached a tipping point on the cell phone ban. All right, we're going to move from there into our one good thing. All right, our one good thing. We always end the show with one good thing to leave you with on your day. The reason we have brought Katie back in here for this is because our one good thing today is the Ohio, and not the Iowa, butter cow. Wild. Here's the Ohio Dairy Farmers Association. This is unveiling the butter cow. And for all my West Wing fans out there, yes, reaching back a little bit, yes, it is a cow made of the product of a cow. Again, kind of that snake eating its tail thing. There's one of the butter cows. But this one is special because it is the 250th anniversary of the country. So you've got a lot more than just the cow. You've got the cow, the calf, you've got the Statue of Liberty, you've got a whole bunch of things. There's an eagle. The eagle, I will give you, looks really good. The seal of the United States as well. A couple of things I didn't know about this butter cow and the butter sculpture. It is not solid butter. Did not know that. There's a steel mesh and wood armature under all of these things that keep it standing. It is in a climate-controlled, almost a freezer, at 18 to 22 degrees Fahrenheit, so that, of course, the butter doesn't melt. It is the summertime. And here is the weirdest thing about this, for me anyway, and if you know anything about the butter sculptures in the Midwest, apparently this will not come as a shock. The butter is recycled. Yes, this is the same butter from the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that, drawing hundreds of thousands of visitors just to see the butter cow, the butter Statue of Liberty, and everything else. Good news, though, at the end of this, the butter that isn't used is usually melted down and converted into biogas and green energy. We're back with Katie because Katie is from Iowa, where the famous butter cow is. And I want to know, Ohio or Iowa? Who's got the better butter cow?
I'm definitely biased on this one. I will be clear on that.
You are.
I'm an Iowa girl. I went to the University of Iowa, and I actually got to meet the Iowa butter cow sculptor last summer when we went to the state fair with Bram Resnick and I. You can watch that story on 12 News, actually. It does have smell to it. I think that was the first time I really realized what it means.
The Iowa one does. I don't know about the Ohio one because it's in that freezer, but who knows? It might have a smell.
Well, yeah, it was also in the freezer, but we got to go into the freezer, and that was the first time I'd ever smelled the recycled butter, which was it was a great experience, actually. They're incredible, these sculptors, and I'll say, shout out to the Ohio sculptors as well. They were pretty fantastic.
That eagle was fantastic. I like that.
It's really cool. Yeah, I will. I've always loved my Iowa butter cow. And when you said Ohio, I definitely thought you were maybe mistaken for a moment there.
Well, for a moment, so was I, because when I saw the video and I pulled it up, the title says Ohio butter cow. And I went, I thought could have sworn it was Iowa, but no, this is the Ohio one. They're making a play for your famous cow.
Certainly people have mistaken Ohio for Iowa in my life, so I wouldn't have been that surprised. No, it looked great, and congrats to them as well. But I am now very excited to see what exactly the Iowa butter cow and
so now you got to
friends
Google
are.
other states and their butter cows.
I'm gonna
in
have
that
to get
area.
on this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start looking that up.
Okay, how big is the butter cow in the Midwest?
Huge.
This is like a thing that all school
It's huge.
kids go and see?
It's absolutely huge. Yeah, last year when I got to go to the Iowa State Fair again, Bram and I actually got to tour it for part of the kind of his political coverage.
There, Ruben Gallego was there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We were out there, and the line is it's always there. There's always a line in front of the butter cow. You can't like get to see it without standing in line.
We don't have
It's
anything
always
like that
popular.
here. We need we can't have a butter cow. The thing would just be a puddle.
It would be a puddle.
You can't refrigerate this enough in Arizona.
It would probably be pretty tough out here, but definitely there, it's pretty spectacular, and I would have to give, like I said, all the props to Ohio as well.
Okay, I haven't even thrown this at you yet because I just thought of it, but what should the Arizona version of the butter cow be? It doesn't have to be a sculpture or a cow, but like what is the version of the butter cow for
What is
us?
our...
We could have well, if it was going to be butter, we could have the butter cactus. That's a thing.
Okay, you could do a butter cactus. I was going to say, you can't really mess with cactus. Nobody should be trying to resculpt cactus. That just sounds like a bad idea on its face.
Yes.
But also, that's a great question. I'm trying to think.
Only thing I'm coming up with is like mud and sand
I was
and
gonna
desert
say,
something. And
everything out here in the desert, you really don't want to touch. It's just going to poke you back.
Well, wait a minute.
So-
The five C's, we have cotton. What if we had the woven butter or the woven cow?
All right. Go ahead. As in one of the C's already cattle.
Yes. We could have both C's at the same time.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right, butter cow. Ohio, Iowa, doesn't matter. Either butter cow is fantastic. All right, that is going to do it for us here on the 11. Thanks so much for watching us here on the 12 News streaming app. We will be right back for 12 News at 1. Don't forget to watch 12 News at 4, 5, and 6. The 11 will be back tomorrow at, guess what time? 11 a.m. Thanks for watching.